Hello guys, welcome to the next video on shell scripting tutorial for beginners. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can read inputs from your terminal in your script. So to get input from the keyboard, you use read command. The read command takes input from the keyboard and assigns it to a variable. So let's see how we can use it. So for example, I want to allow the user to enter some names. So I will just write, for example, first of all echo, and then I will just print some text. For example, enter names or name, right? And then I want to allow the user to enter the name. So for that, I can use a command called read, and then whatever variable name I write after this read command, your input will be saved in this variable. Okay, so for example, I write the variable name, then your input will be saved inside this name variable. Now I want to print this variable, so I can just write echo, and then I can just write entered name, and then the variable, so use dollar symbol and the variable name as we have seen in the last video. So let's run the script and let's see what happens. So it asks me for entering the name, and I enter some name, for example Max, and then press enter, and then it says entered name is Max, which is totally fine, right? So whenever you want to take an input from the terminal, use read command. Now for example, you want to enter multiple variables in a same read command, you can just do that also. So for example, I want the user to enter multiple names, so I will just edit this text to enter names, and then instead of using one variable, I can use, for example, name1 and then space name2. Let me just correct, name2, and then space name3, and so on, right? So whenever you want the user to input multiple variables, just write the variable and then separate it by the space, another variable, separate it by the space, and then another variable. And to print these names, you can just print it like you do normally. So for example, names, and then first name is name1, and then comma, for example, and then once again name2, and then comma, and then print the variable name3. Okay, so let's save the code and let's run the script once again, and then enter the name. So for entering the name, for example, I write Max, don't press enter here, just enter the second name, for example Tom and John. I entered 3 names here, right? And then print enter, and then it prints names, and then whatever names I have entered here, right? Now for example, if you want to enter the input on the same line as you printed this echo string on, then how you can do this? So for example, I'm going to run this example once again, and you can see it prints this string using echo, and then I can see the prompt on the next line. Now sometimes I want to do it on the same line as this string, right? So how I can do this? So let me remove everything here, and let's say I want to allow the user to enter his username, right? So I can just write read, and there is a flag called -p or p flag, which allows us to enter the input on the same prompt or same line, right? So for example, I will just write user name here, and then I can take the user input, for example user var for user variable, right? So this will allow me to enter the input on the same line, right? And to echo this, I can just write echo, and then whatever the username is. So for example, I will just write the same text here, and then the variable name, which is user var. Okay, and let me run the script once again, and then it asks me the username, for example my user, and then press enter, and it prints the username. Now sometimes you also want to make this input silent. Silent means, for example, you want to allow the user to enter his password, and the password you cannot show, for example, right? So you don't want to show what the user is typing. Then you can use a flag called S for flag, right? So let me just show you what I mean. So with this read, you just add a S flag and then a P flag, and then, for example, this is a password. Okay, so just write password, and then just change the variable name, for example pass variable, and then we will just print our password. Okay, so if you want, you know, skip this, you can skip this line because you don't want to show whatever password user have entered, but this input will be silent. And let me show you what I mean by silent is. So let me run the script, and I will just enter the username, for example my user, and then it asks me for the password. I enter the password 12345, but it doesn't show on this terminal, but it's stored in this variable, right? So whenever you press enter, you can see the password using this line of echo command. The password is shown here, which is 12345, which I have printed. But in here I also can see that this line is printed on the same line as the password line. So to solve this problem, I can just write echo here with no string, right? And let me run the script once again. So username my user, and password once again 12345, but it doesn't show on the terminal. And when I press enter, it shows everything. So username and password like this. Now, for example, you want to allow the user to enter multiple inputs, and you want to save those input inside an array. So you can do that also. And for that, you use a flag called -a. So let me just remove everything here, and I will just say echo, and then I will just say enter names, for example, enter names, and then I can just write read and then -a, which tells this script to read an array, right? So whatever variable name you give here, for example names, it will be like an array. Okay, so to print those names, I can just write echo once again. So just write echo, and then, for example, names, and then whatever names you have entered, so I can extract them like an array. So to extract an array, you can just write the variable name and the index of the array. So for example, at 0th index there will be a first name, but to print this variable you just need to surround it by a curly bracket. So just give a curly bracket like this, and you can you know, extract all the index like this. So next will be index 1 and index 2 and index 3 and so on, right? For example, for now I just want to extract first two elements of an array, right? So let me just run the script once again, and name once again, for example Tom and Max, and then press enter, and it shows us the names. So you can extract those input as an array also using this -a flag. Now I just want to show you one last trick here. So for example, I just want the user to enter name normally, and I will just remove these inputs like this. And for example, I just write read here with no variable here after read command. So what happens when you write read command and no variable after this? So what happens is whenever you write read and without any variable after read command, the input goes into a built-in variable called reply. So if you just write here dollar and then reply, then you will be able to see your input even without your variable name. So the default variable in which your input goes is this reply variable, right? So let me clear the terminal here, and now let me run the script again. So run the script, and for example I write some name here, once again Max, and then press enter, and it prints the name whatever I have entered. So by default your input goes in this built-in variable called reply. So in this way you can read variables in your script using terminal. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please rate, comment and subscribe, and bye for now.